Okay, welcome back to the Ecom 80/20 podcast. I'm here, your host, Jakob Rosenberg, with my partner, Isaac Hyman, and we are excited to be back for another week of Ecom Secrets. Isaac, how was your week this week?
It's been great. I mean, after a December of kind of not too cold and not too hot, it actually dropped in temperature. So it became chilly over here on the East Coast.
Yeah,
It's been trying.
it's getting a little chilly over here in Israel too. Today was a balmy 71 degrees. It was rough in
Not bad, not bad.
middle of January, but we're happy with that.
You'll take it.
Yeah, we'll definitely take that. So today, I think we're going to talk about January specifically. It's a great topic for the beginning of the year, how to win e-commerce in Q1, the smart way to win e-commerce in Q1. Q1 obviously is from January till the end of March, first quarter of the year. And really the best way to set yourself up for a good year ahead is to really tackle Q1. And Isaac, let's go into a little bit of those details. If you were to list the top 3 things that you would do to really allow a brand and a business, e-commerce business, to win e-commerce in Q1, what would those 3 things be?
Oh man, there's so many things to choose from. I think the most important thing is to take a step back and evaluate the business overall. If you planned out your end of year correctly, you did some sort of good ABR, annual business review, and just kind of took a look at it. So usually in January, even February, you're going to find most of your customers are all spent. They have no more money.
Yeah, we're all broke.
And their tax refund hasn't come yet. So they're kind of like in a holding pattern, and the holidays are kind of like gone, and all the other holidays what's the next one? The big one, I guess, depending on your industry. But
Valentine's Day, probably.
Yeah. Valentine's Day, maybe President's Week. And then it doesn't really hit up again until about Memorial Day or Mother's Day and Father's Day and July 4th.
Maybe
So kind of like
Easter in between, depending on your market. But yeah.
And Easter. Yeah, that's a good one. Passover, some people.
Right.
And
some people like us.
Yeah, exactly. We don't pass over that holiday.
Yeah.
So
not.
Generally I think most brands should kind of, reduce their expectations on hitting huge revenue numbers in Q1. So instead, they should really focus on getting a really good audit of what's going well and what's working, set up a good testing roadmap, and then focus on just kind of like a strong reporting plan, because you want to kind of know what's working, what's not working. So if I was to say in Q1, what do you focus on? An audit, reporting, and testing.
Baseline stuff, really. Like, you got to set the foundation, like you said, because you have to know where you are to know where you want to be. And then once you get there, you have to know where you started from. Because if you don't have a good baseline, you don't know where you are right now, you can't know where you need to be and how you're going to get there. It's goal setting, right? Every business has goals, numbers that they want to reach. And the only way you can do that is if you know where you're starting from. You can't
know starting from, and
you start from
exactly
right.
And how do you put those goals into action with, tactically, strategically? Anyone could be strategic about it, of course, and that's usually your December, like, where do you want to be? But now it's starting to get very tactical, and you got to start doing it in the right way. Before you know it, oh man, I can't tell you how many times when you're working with e-commerce brands, before you know it, it's June already. And you're like, whoa, what just happened? Half the year went by, and no one knows what happened. And you're kind of doing the same thing. So time sneaks up on you, and you're back in the holiday season. So plan it out early. Agreed.
Okay, so let's go into the first one of those. Let's do a real deep dive into an audit, right?
Sure.
Somebody hears, right, e-commerce business hears the word audit. Forget the tax implication of an audit. We're not talking about a tax audit. You're not getting audited by the IRS. You're doing an internal audit of your business, where you are, what you've done, and where you can go from there. So you really have to look into what your standards are, what you have set up in place, and how you can improve on it. Because you might be, not specifically a new business, but businesses that have been around for a while, things might be working already, but you want to see where they can be better. There's always room for improvement, even, always optimizing, keep optimizing. So let's start with the foundations. Okay. Just name some of the foundational elements here that we're talking about when it comes to an audit for an e-commerce business.
Yeah, that's so important. Just taking a good hard look at what you have, right? Even starting, some brands, if they're just starting out, right? Sometimes they look at their email platform and they kind of look at it and say like, okay, I've been using this for so long. Is there anything better out there? And then they really dive into what are the capabilities they want to achieve. For some, it's about maybe they need to do a migration to a new email platform. Maybe they saw some challenges on their existing platform that they want to kind of remove or kind of get to the next level. Some brands want to put a focus on, offline and online kind of marketing, like especially if you have a few brick and mortar locations. So you need a different kind of platform to handle that. It's not just about using one ESP. So you need to focus on that migration and evaluate your technology. So that would be number one, right? When you say, there are many times where you've probably dealt with specifically on the fulfillment side, like clients that have just been like, yeah, I'm kind of pasting, cutting and pasting different elements onto this ESP and trying to get the most out of it, but it's not really working enough.
Eventually you run out of glue. So you definitely have to move, right. You evaluate the products. Yeah, you evaluate the product that you have. You see if it's working for your business, if there's better things out there, because there's always new in the market. Yeah. There's always the next best thing. And don't get distracted by this shiny syndrome, but
that's a good point.
But you definitely have to take stock of what you have and see, you know what, this product that I'm using doesn't have this feature that I know I need, or I know I could benefit from. For example, we were looking at a certain, not on an ESP level, but more of a structural, foundational project management level. We were looking at a new software, and we decided, you know what, there's a lot of things that we could use in the new one, but there are also a lot of features that we have on the old one. So we're actually not going to be switching. But just from the fact that we did our due diligence and looked at it and said, you know what, there might be new features out there. What can we do? So for sure, yes. Every business needs to do that evaluation of their software and make sure that the ones that they have is good, and the ones that are out there might be beneficial for them. What about internal? Let's just say you don't move to the next platform. So what about building up your list, your segments, and making sure that everything there is categorized properly?
Yeah, it's very, very similar. It's that now that you've agreed on, hey, well, here's my technology that I plan to commit to, or how do you maximize it, right? That's kind of what a lot of people don't do, right? I think the stats are most brands adopt only about 10% of the capabilities of technology. So here's the opportunity to
is it 80-20? Is it
that's
80-20?
Well, that's actually inefficient. That's super inefficient. 10% of the technology they use, they use, and then the rest they're just kind of like, whatever. Or I don't have time to figure it out. Or, I'll just bring on some other technology that I'm also going to use 10% of. So that's terrible.
Right.
But use the time to kind of dig into your actual technology that you're going to commit to, and then revolve everything around your customer, right? You want to build out more segments, make sure you're tracking your segments and all. And we'll go in the reporting part of this podcast, we'll talk about which segments to kind of zero in on.
Yeah.
Dive into your personalization, make sure you have all the product automations running, make sure you have all the personalization elements you need. I mean, a great example, we're working with a client right now that is looking to do an automation, but for a certain type of product that's very kind of timely, like a birthday related product. And it would be a lot more helpful if we acquired the customer's birthday.
For sure.
Right? Then we could say, oh, wow, the customer's birthday is on this date. So we will trigger a whole email series around that birthday, maybe an email 7 days before, maybe 3 days before, whatever it is. Happy birthday email. But that starts with that, hey, how do we acquire that data point? Set that foundation. That's the foundational audit. Data schema, like I just said, having all the right data coming in for your customers. Again, another client we're working with was saying, hey, I don't have my store information in my email platform. I haven't matched it, right? So I have all these customers coming into the store. I'm not getting their email. And Klaviyo, or whatever platform we're on right now, it doesn't read it. Well, let's start cleaning that up. Now is the time.
That's a lot of information they're missing out on. They absolutely using in their emails. So talk about those automations, right? Right. The key, it's always, we said, you can always add new automations and new ways to make make money while you sleep. But what about those top three, the ones that have been running for the longest amount of time, the ones that are really your money makers? Those are a great place to start with, right?
Audit those. Yeah. 80-20, like you said, 80-20 rule. Majority of your revenue comes from the kind of like your top three automations at the very least. Your top three: welcome, cart, and browse. Take the time to audit them, also improve them. What are you testing? What worked? What can you improve on this quarter? And then if you improve it on Q1, you're pretty well set for Q2, Q3, and Q4 to be even better than last year.
Awesome.
Right. So that's the top three to figure out. That is the definition of 80-20.
And then I think you also mentioned sign up location. So what is that referring to?
Sign up locations are definitely kind of focusing on how many people are coming from what source. Are they coming from paid search? Are they coming from social media? How can we acquire more email addresses? Is everything working correctly? Again, there are many times where we've seen that sometimes if people sign up from a purchase, well, they should have an entirely different welcome series than someone who is just welcomed and didn't buy anything. It's a totally different series, but you don't know it until you audit that location. And it doesn't dawn on you until you start realizing, oh, wow, this guy just bought something. I'm going to give him a welcome email with a 10% off. I'm going to get a complaint for this guy saying, hey, I just bought it at full price. Can I apply my 10% off coupon?
Yeah.
Oh, man, no one wants that.
Yeah,
that's just a headache.
Those are the ones that come back and ask. They're the ones that ask later on. We don't like that.
Yeah. The foundational audit is so critical for every brand. It could be big or small. Every brand should just kind of take the month, just audit everything.
Got to know your baseline before you can move.
Yes.
Forward. Speaking of baseline, now we'll move into reporting. Okay. Now that you know that you need to do it, tell us what goes into a baseline report.
So reporting is a great thing. A lot of brands kind of skim over, or they look at it more of on a week-to-week basis, or they kind of skim their numbers in their email platform, see how their campaigns are doing, or they just kind of don't even know. So
they're living in the day-to-day, not the
living day-to-day, and that's not helpful. That's not helpful for anyone, right? You want to kind of know the trends, right? You need to know exactly what the trend line looks like. So what I always recommend is to set up a monthly report. It could be a weekly report too, but start monthly. Pull together the key metrics that you want to look at. Some key metrics would include things like, obviously we all know from an email perspective, there's open rates and click rates and conversion rates and orders and AOV. We all know those.
Yeah.
Those are great. But a lot of brands don't focus on, let's say, the customer migrations. How many one-time buyers do they have? How many non-buyers do they have? How many 2-time, 3-time, 10-time buyers do they have? And track how that growth is going every month. And hopefully it's going positively and not negatively, but you'll know until you track it.
Right. You always want to know that customer journey and even auditing that customer journey and making sure that, where you thought your customer was going and how they got to where they're going, ultimately the conversion, the sale, you want to make sure that they're following either your path or the path that they're actually following. You want to make sure you're adapting to that as well. So you're not going to know that if you're not tracking that in the migration. So yeah, that's a great one. Now, also, I think you mentioned segmentation. How do you track that as well?
Segmentation, same way. I mean, there are times we use segments that are very dynamic, in that if someone clicks on an email, well, if someone opens an email but doesn't click, well, they're kind of in this bucket of engaged. But if they click an email, they're in highly engaged, or clickers, or whatever else you want to call it. So see how those are going, because then at the end of the day, if you see that the people clicking on your emails are better and the people not even opening your emails are shrinking, you'll do a lot better. For sure. So, but you don't know until you see it. And especially if you haven't broken out your campaigns on a segment level with segmented sends, you definitely will never see it. So that's so important to know how your creatives are doing, how's your copy doing, what your send time looks like. And that's all in this reporting. And I'll give you a really, really quick stat. Just again, simple 80-20 rule. It's all about that kind of efficiency. If you focus a 5% increase on customer retention, that can result in 25 to 95% increase in company profitability.
Wow. It's a big range, 25 to 90%.
Huge.
Yeah.
5%, just a 5% focus, but you don't do that unless you're reporting on it and you know what to do. Of
course. And as well as, the big old Google. How do we, what's the best way to set that up for Google Analytics tracking and reporting?
Well, here's the tricky part about that. And I think we saw that as we were doing a deep dive into someone's reporting.
Attribution. It's the A word.
Attribution. attribution, right? Last click attribution, first click attribution, 30-day cookie, 30-day pix, you name it. There's so many different attribution ways of attributing your revenue. So it doesn't hurt to kind of take a good look at Google Analytics and make sure that the trends are looking the same. You won't see the same amount of revenue in your email platform as you'll see in Google Analytics because it's a different attribution model. So, but what you can see is the trend, right? If your revenue is increasing from your email or SMS channel, and it's increasing in your ESP, well, at least you're trending in the same direction. So look for the trends. If you see something totally haywire and Google Analytics is going all the way up and your email platform is going all the way down, well, it's time to really dive in.
Yeah.
Really slide we saw, like, shoo,
yeah.
all the way down.
We only go up, right? We're high flyers. We go up. We only want up. Okay, now we're just going to move on to the next phase of our smart ways to win e-commerce in Q1, and that was the testing, because now is a perfect time to really see what your audience does and what your creatives are doing and how people are interested in your product and your services. The only way you're really going to know that is, you can't really rely too much on the holiday season because everybody was in shop mode. Now you want to see what works and what doesn't work. The best time to do that is when you have the time to do that. Now Q1 is a perfect time for that. So let's talk about testing and actually building out a plan so that you're testing throughout the year, so that by the time you get to Q4 or the end of Q3, when the holiday season really starts, making sure that you have a proper roadmap. So talk about laying out that foundational roadmap.
Oh yeah, that's so important in Q1. You set it up, you're set for the rest of the year. But the key part of setting it up is to make sure you have the right KPIs, know exactly what you're tracking.
Key performance indicators.
Key performance indicators, for those that don't know, KPIs. I think I ate some of that for breakfast.
Yeah.
And set up a testing plan. That made no sense, did it? Set up a testing plan.
Okay, we're here to have fun too. We can laugh at ourselves.
We can laugh at ourselves. Where you're measuring more than just one campaign. I can't tell you how many times we look at a campaign and we do a subject line test, but you can't scale that to every single type of campaign. You don't have that testing plan that says, yep, this is good for all our emails going forward and not good for our emails going forward, or inconclusive. And then know your rollouts. Just make sure you are rolling out correctly. That's the best way to get your testing plan, your testing roadmap. KPIs, enough rollouts to measure against, and just let it run. Let it run.
Yeah, and you have to trust the process. When you say let it run, it's sometimes you want to make a tweak. Like as soon as you see something, you want to change something. Like, well, that's not a good test. You have to let things go for a little while, whether it's a couple of weeks or a month or two, making sure that you understand what it is that you're seeing. The data is going to tell you, but you can't just be so quick to say, okay, that didn't work after 2 days. Let's change something. Let's change something again. Now, how many times do we deal with that where somebody says, I don't like this campaign. I don't like this creative. I don't like this subject line. Let's change it. Or let's change something on a website or with any ads that we're running. You have to let things run in order to get a proper test to make sure that you can see what worked and what didn't work. So
that's exactly it. Set your goals and know what you're going for, and have it actual goals. Don't just say, oh yeah, let's test out I don't know, emojis in a subject line. That's a very minimal test. Like, is it really going to provide that lift that you're looking for, an emoji in a subject line to the level you think? Probably not.
Probably not.
What I would definitely test and focus on is, how do I get the click? Right? We're all about focusing on the click, right? So that's one of our key values. And when you focus on the click, that tells you the customer is interested in hearing from you and engaging with you.
Yeah, raising their hand,
saying, yes, tell me more. I like what you showed me. I'm ready to talk.
So
dance a little bit.
Yeah. It's always a good time for that. So speaking of time, one of the best optimizations that we can do is send time optimization, making sure that we're sending our emails and our messages, whether it's on email or SMS or even social media, to our customers, to our audience at the right time, when it works for them, not necessarily when it works for us. So that's another option for testing. So what are the key factors when it comes to testing send time, as well as, is it morning, is it afternoon, is it lunchtime, is it right after the holiday, right after the weekend? I'm sorry. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, send time optimization is always good, because there are times that East Coast, West Coast will play a role, especially if you're a national e-commerce brand. I think the key
Global,
part is to make
right?
sure. Which one?
Global brands too.
Global, exactly. Yeah, international. And I think it's what the critical part is to make sure your promotions last for that extended period of time. There are many times when, oh man, I can tell you when there's a lot of daily deals going, right? And they somebody send a send time optimization on a daily deal, and it's a daily deal. So at 9 a.m., I'm sorry, at 12 a.m., 12 a.m., yes, 12 a.m. East Coast time, the deal goes dark, but it's 9 p.m. over on the West Coast.
Still shopping hours there.
Still shopping, I'm still clicking, still engaging, put the kids to sleep, let me start my shopping. And all of a sudden now they see a blank page or it's gone dark. Well, that's no good for anyone. So you want to kind of make sure to keep your deals live enough for that testing period, especially when you're doing send time optimization.
Awesome. And then just, I think one of the last topics we'll touch on is, moving away from your own software and services, but what kind of third-party tools can we really factor in here so that brands can really win with things that they haven't really tested yet, haven't really used yet, but things they're interested in.
Right. Well, first, I also want to kind of just run down some of the top tests you should always think about. There's subject line testing we all know about.
Yeah.
Test your creatives, A/B test them, right, and see how that does, how different creative looks and copy works. Test against segments, right? Which segments will resonate, will engage with your creatives a lot better. Test products in the email, products out of the email, test different recommendation recipes. You name it. There's a lot of different options you have, and just get that roadmap going. But like you said, there's a bunch of third-party tools you can also be testing that will add some incrementality to your email program. Incrementality is the key word here.
Yeah.
It's not about
don't do everything at once.
Yeah. You know what I mean by incrementality? It's like, right? It's like my cart abandon is making $100,000 a year or a month, $100,000 a month. I'm going to bring in this tool, and they take credit for $50,000 of that 100,000 somehow. And like, oh, look, the tool is amazing. It works. No, they need to add something to your program. Right. You need to make $120,000 now. So it's the incrementality you need to lay out so that when you're testing a third-party tool, such as a Zambula or that's the kinetic emails that kind of add countdown timers or things like that.
Cool.
Or Persado, which does subject line testing and emotional subject line testing, which is really cool stuff. Anytime you're adding that, note the incrementality of it. Like if they're going to give your open rates to get from 20% to 25%, that's incrementality.
Right.
That 5%. So that's great. If you can, as long as you set out those goals and test them out.
Awesome. Any other thing you want to add just to help our listeners win e-commerce in Q1 in a smart way?
How much time do we have?
Really only a few more minutes. We're running out of time here on our podcast for this week.
No
but last piece of advice.
Yeah, I definitely would say if you set it all up in Q1 and you get your foundation set in Q1, I can guarantee you that when Q3 hits and Q4 hits, you are ready to run. You have a lot more confidence in your program. You'll know everything that's going to go out correctly and optimized to the best capabilities, to your best capability, and you'll see your revenue, jump. You really will. I can tell you firsthand. We've run accounts that were kind of slow in Q1 or even slow in Q4 the year before. This year in Q4, they exploded because we had done all our testing in Q1. We constantly refined in Q2, Q3, Q4, boom, we sat back and relaxed. Awesome. Let the money pour in.
Yeah, look, it's not the most exciting part of the year.
It's not.
But it's the one that's going to help you reap the most benefits towards the end of the year. Instead of scrambling in Q3 and Q4 of what was working, you already have a way to understand and to learn and see what did work because you set it up the right way in Q1. So
yes,
this is fun. This is always
great.
Fun. And thank you all for listening. This was the smart way to win e-commerce in Q1. It's been fun. Have a great week. Yep. Thanks so much for listening.
Thanks, guys.